Hey tea friends, do you drink sencha? I know a lot of you still haven't drank sencha. I get asked all the time, what is the tea that I drink every day? The answer is actually Japanese green tea. I mean, is it something that I think is like the best in the world? I try to get the best one, but in compared to like Chinese and Taiwanese tea, I never think sencha is the same level. I mean, for a lot of reasons. I mean, part of it because sencha is still mostly mass-produced and they usually are machine-picked, where Chinese and Taiwanese premium tea are normally hand-picked. So I don't put them in the same class, but yet it's something I drink every day. Well, sencha is kind of confusing actually. The name sencha does not really make sense, to be honest with you, because the first character, sen, it's actually means pan fried for like Chinese tea. But when we think about pan frying, we usually think of Chinese tea. Now, long time ago, obviously, Japanese tea come from China, and there's a lot of skill that is basically learned from China. But over time, things have changed. And now, when we think about sencha, we don't really think about pan-fried green tea. We think about steamed green tea, which is very different, steam and pan frying. So if you look at the character sen in Japanese, it actually means infused tea. Everybody just put this sencha as a type of green tea. Remember, it's a type of green tea. So when we're talking about green tea, it's not only sencha. There's a lot of type of green tea in Japan. Sencha is one of them. And people get confused a lot with matcha. Matcha is also a type of green tea. Gyokuro is another one. Bancha is also a green tea, a type of green tea. And what's the most confusing though, personally, even for me, a while back, was actually sencha. A lot of people thought they're the same thing. Sencha, sencha. Some people thought sencha is just a better quality sencha. And is it true? Maybe. At least that's the marketing. But the funny thing is, sen, it just means brand new, right? So when you go to Japan, I will say between April to even July, basically that's where the new harvest, right? The new harvest, spring arrive. That's when like the very, very highest quality, like that's when like the highest quality tea is actually picked. And technically it's a new harvest, it's a new year, and that's really all it means, new tea. And people like to use that terms to promote that this is a new harvest tea. It's not necessarily a higher quality sencha. Lots of people thought, including myself a long time ago, I thought sencha is just this like exciting, highest quality sencha. It turns out that's not the truth. It's not like when I go to Japan in May and then there's like a separation between sencha and shincha. There's no such thing. Everything is new harvest. So sencha is sencha and sencha could be shincha. But everything is shincha basically. Sin, sen, very, very similar. So I can see how people are confused, right? And then especially people like to say that our sencha is only picked the very first week of spring, right? Otherwise we wouldn't call it sencha. But even that, there's no rule. Anybody can call anything. So what's the point, right? I guess it's all marketing. Well, today I'm gonna be drinking this Asatsuyu sencha. Well, depending on when you buy this tea, it can be called sencha or sencha. On my website, I actually call both. Why? No particular reason. They're the same. I only buy tea from like a first harvest, right? So technically you can't call summer pick or autumn pick tea a sencha because the new harvest usually means spring pick, right? But even spring pick is sometimes people thought it was just only one kind. There's actually many different grades, even for like spring pick, right? I try to get the earliest possible. Sometimes I'm able to get the date when they pick the tea that I know it really is the first few days, but sometimes I cannot. So all I can rely on is by the farmer telling me, is it first harvest or is it second harvest? Is it ichibangcha or is it nibangcha, right? Ichibangcha is just the first harvest, nibangcha is usually the summer pig. So those are considered lower quality, not my favorite. Now, so this is for sure ichibang sencha, right? Ichibangcha. Asatsuyu. Asatsuyu, this is a pretty popular cultivar among people that don't want to spend a lot of money but still somehow get the quality of like gyokuro. Gyokuro is also a type of Japanese green tea that has been shaded for 3 weeks. We'll talk about gyokuro in the future video, but gyokuro and matcha, they both are shaded for 3 weeks and is considered higher quality. And this one is not shaded, right? If it's shaded, if it's not 3 weeks, they call it kabusecha. There's so many type of Japanese green tea, but we're gonna just focus on this one Asatsuyu sencha, right? And this is from Asamiya. Asamiya area is near Shiga, which is not too far from Kyoto, right? So how are we gonna do this? We're going to use about 4 to 5 grams of this tea, right? And I'm going to use a Japanese side handle teapot, or it's called kyushu. I've tested many different teapot, and so far this regular kyushu is the best out of all. So there's a shibori dashi, which is like a flat, and then there's a hobi, which is a little bit taller. Testing it all, I realized I like the flavor from this the best, right? This is what the leaf looks like, right? It is, from looking at the leaf, you kind of can tell how long they steam the leaf. The longer they steam the leaf, normally the more finer the tea leaves are. So like this one, it's usually considered light steam. And light steam is normally between 2 seconds to 10 seconds. Depends on what the farmer called them. All I know is normally every farmer calls them slightly differently. So you can just base on the look. If the leaf is big, it's light steam. If the leaf is small, it's usually deep steam. That's it. I'm going to measure this about 5 grams. Okay, I have a scale here. I don't know, when you drink a lot of Chinese green tea, normally we don't really measure them. If there is one tea that I'm going to measure them, that's normally Japanese green tea, right? Japanese green tea is a little bit finicky. There are some Japanese green tea that kind of hard to learn, but in general, you want to measure the tea leaf for Japanese green tea. Now, once you drink it often enough, you have an idea of how much tea you're going to need. Also, I drink Japanese green tea mostly because I love how it makes me feel. The caffeine boost, the mood, just give me the focus I needed for the day. I love that, right? This is 5 grams. So I will say what, about 2 tablespoons. Look at it, just beautiful. And then, in order for you to properly brew Japanese green tea, you always want to heat up your pot first, right? So I'm gonna use the same temperature here, or you can use higher temperature. Japanese green tea are considerably much more sensitive compared to Chinese green tea. Now, because Japanese green tea is much more sensitive, everything you do, I wouldn't say has to be precise, but has to have a lot of thoughtfulness, if that's the right word, right? You're going to do everything more gentle, more conscious. You don't want to just you don't want to just be rough with it. You want to spread it out. Make sure you smell it, including pouring the water, and have the timer ready. I'm going to put this about 45 seconds. Just do it really gently. And normally I don't like to put the water all the way to the lid. Normally I like to fill it up just right below the line of where the strainer at. You see this, the top line? Usually I don't want to exceed that line, right? So if you see where this mouth on the top side of it, that's where I'm gonna put that. And then you're going to pour them slowly. Pour it out. That's 45 seconds, including the pouring time. That's roughly about a minute. You hear that beep? That means the timer just told me that it's been a minute. So roughly about 45 seconds, start pouring it out, and you have 15 seconds, right? And for a light steam green tea or Asamiya, this is a great color. Now, understanding the sencha of like the light steam of deep steam is very important when you are making any type of Japanese green tea. The bigger the leaf, the easier it is to brew. Also, a lot of time, what Japanese people like to do is to feel the bottom of the bowl or the teapot to know if the temperature is too hot. Often, if it's too hot for your hand, it means it's too hot for the green tea, right? So this is what it looks like. This is Chinese teacup. Normally, Japanese like to use a bigger teacup, but for me, I like smaller one because you can basically pay better attention to it. You can take your time better, it cools down even faster. So this is an example of what the Japanese mug looked like. It's slightly bigger. It's a little bit more similar to the Western style. So basically, you don't even need this. You can just pour it directly to here. And in Japan, I actually just learned this from a book, that it's considered rude for you to chuck all the tea all at once. You're supposed to show gratitude by savor them and drink them slowly. And if you at somebody's place, I guess it's considered rude if you make a lot of noise. Where in China, in the tea farm, when we judge tea, we slurp all the time. So different country, different culture, right? But I like slurping because it just gives me a better flavor profile. This particular one is Asamiya Asatsuyu. Now, let's talk about that name real quick. Asamiya is the name of the place, and Asatsuyu is the name of the cultivar, right? Asatsuyu cultivar is famous for having the natural gyokuro flavor, which is like umami, a little bit astringency, but it's like really umami without the work of like trying to shade them. Asatsuyu, it's also really good for making good organic green tea. Why? Because Asatsuyu tend to does really well without needing any pesticides, right? So for that reason, if you want to make a good organic green tea, organic Japanese green tea, Asatsuyu is a really good cultivar. So all of our Asatsuyu sencha that we've ever sold, they're all organic. The problem with Asatsuyu though, they don't really do well at a cold climate area. So if it's like a really high elevation, it's difficult to grow this cultivar. But I know that this farm is 100% organic. So for a lot of 100% organic farm, it's common for them to have this cultivar. Asatsuyu cultivar is also very sensitive to frostbite. So for that reason, the yield is not a lot. So the price is a lot, and then for a lot of like a mass-produced company, they just cannot produce enough tea to sell. So a lot of Asatsuyu sencha seems to come from a smaller farm. 2 or 3 different Asatsuyu that we ever sold, all of them come from a small family farm, which is usually the kind of tea farm that I like to work with anyway. Asatsuyu has this tiny bit astringency that is not very pleasant for some people, but it has a great aftertaste. It has like a great creamy, nutty, almost like almond or like even oats kind of like texture to it. So what I like to tell people a lot of time, when you drink tea that is naturally has this astringency, is you want to try to kind of like skip the front part of your tongue, which is the most sensitive part of that astringency, and let it sit on the back end. If you kind of trick the way you drink the tea, this tea is actually quite nice. It's quite nice. This is why it's not just about learning how to make the tea, but it's also kind of like learning how to drink the tea too. So what can I do to achieve the best, the most optimal flavor of a sencha? For me, is if you can make the tea strong without making it taste uncomfortably bitter, but just like tiny little bit bitter and astringency and lots of texture and lots of aftertaste, for me, that's the best way, right? Some of them you might use 140, really low temperature, or some of them you use 175, like what I was doing right now, right? And you kind of have to test it a couple times. Also test it with different teaware. Oh my God, so many times I thought the tea wasn't good. For some reason, when I was using this teapot, that tea comes out a lot more stronger, to the point it's like a lot more bitter than I wanted to. But as soon as I switch to this teapot, the flavor just comes out perfect. Still a little bit of stringency, but lots of creamy notes that is really amazing. So let's try this tea one more time for the second infusion, and let's see how different they are, the flavor and the color. I'm using the same temperature. Now that the tea leaves fully open, I don't want to brew the same 45 seconds to a minute. In fact, probably just only going to brew about 15 to 20 seconds and then pouring it out for like the next 10 seconds after. Okay. Looking at the color, it's pretty similar. It might be a little bit more vibrant, and that's usually a pretty good sign. You can see much stronger color, right? So let's give this a try. Yeah, so it's a lot more balanced now. Earlier, the first infusion, like tiny bit astringency and then follow with like a lot of heavy texture. Now it's kind of mellowed down the heavy texture, and the astringency and the sweetness and the body, it's just all meshed together now. I will say this tea is kind of remind me a little bit of the bitterness of a bilochun, like a Chinese green tea. It's just a little bit though, so don't feel like astringency is bad. Astringency can be good as long as it's followed with a lot of other texture and a lot of sweetness. It actually makes it more complex, and it gives you this body and like aftertaste that is just amazing. And on top of it, it makes you feel good. Yeah, what do you think? Will you give this Asatsuyu a try? This is called Organic Asamiya Asatsuyu Sencha. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Every extra subscriber are getting me closer to 1,000 subscribers. I'm trying to improve the number of my YouTube subscribers. Please let me know if there's any feedback, any comment. I will be forever grateful. Thank you again, and hopefully I'll see you until the next video. Bye.